Oh, goody.
Alright, what is up everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Mercenaries video. In this one, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. We are going to be talking about the issue in Mercenaries with the leaderboards and, more importantly, botting. So this is an issue I wanted to bring some more attention to, as this is something that has happened in the past, but it is kind of still happening, and I think it's really only going to get worse with time until something gets resolved. So I know there are a lot of people out there who aren't aware of what's going on, and so I kind of wanted to bring things to light a little bit about botting in Mercenaries, more specifically in PvP. So here we're looking at the leaderboards here on the Hearthstone website, and as you can see, we have all the players here at the top of the Mercenaries leaderboards for the Americas server for the month of July. And we're almost halfway through the month, and you can see at the top here we have Board King with 31,000 MMR. And you may notice that below him, there really aren't many players at all close to him. You have two others in the 20k here. And then below that, it really falls off pretty fast. We got 17k, 15, and then it kind of goes down. A lot of people in the 12k range. But we're going to be focusing on people who are botting. So how can you tell if a person is botting in Mercenaries? Well, with just the regular Hearthstone website, there would not be enough information for us to really get all this. However, we do have a great tool at our disposal, and I wanted to do this like a month ago or so, but the leaderboards were broken for a while where they weren't working right at all, so we couldn't actually use the tool to see who is botting and who is not. So that tool is donkey.top. So if you don't know, Donkey, great member of the Hearthstone community, basically made his own kind of website that pulls the data from the Hearthstone API, so it's the exact same data that is being used in Hearthstone, but he gives us a bit more information. So here we're on the leaderboards for America's Mercenaries. Again, you can swap all this stuff if you want to check a different month, different mode, different server, whatever. But the nice thing about Donkey, and here we can see the same players and whatnot, Donkey has this little button here where we get match history. Now, this is only applicable to people who are on the leaderboards, so you do have to be in the top 200. Here we can see the cutoff point, about 8k right now for this time in the month. So with that in mind, we're going to take a look at some of the people at the top who don't really deserve to be there. And then we're going to talk about why this happens. So let's look at Board King, the most notorious and the most obvious of all the botters on the Mercenaries ladder, at least on NA. I don't play the other servers, so I think this is an issue on them as well. I'm just not as familiar with who's doing it over there. So here we have a nice little rating history thing, and as you can see, this is a staircase. And if we look at the dates here, starting July 10th to basically the time of recording this, July 13th, this player, quote unquote, has been going for 3 days straight without stopping. And obviously they just keep going up and up and up, and it's not going to stop because they are not a human being. It is a robot. They only play the Frost comp. They've been playing the same comp for months, and it's always the exact same. It's the Jaina, Varden, and Localar lead with a Diablo, Karen, and Sinestra bench. Not even really a good comp in the meta right now, and I talked about this a little bit on Meta Monday, where that comp was one of the most played comps, but it had a pretty low win rate, and the whole reason it is played so much, or it has so many stats, is because it is kind of the default botting comp for the people who are doing this. So we can actually see here, these numbers represent the games they have played, so we can see, when they got a win, when they got a loss, and all that. And the graph is nice because it makes it so we don't actually have to go through every single one of these and then tally it all up, and we can just see the result here. Now, I'm going to show a normal player's graph so we can get a little bit of perspective here as to what this is actually supposed to look like. So we'll go down here. We'll take a look at Rodri. Rodri's someone who's been very active in the community, plays in a lot of the community events, hangs out in chat when I'm doing some streams. And as we can see here, this looks very, very different, right? This is something that a normal player's thing might look like. You have these clusters. You can see he's been doing some climbing, but you also have moments sometimes where you go down a bit more, but more importantly, you're not ever seeing a straight line of playtime from one day to the next day, because nobody is playing Mercenaries for 24 hours straight. It's just not happening, and especially not longer than that. So I'll show another example here of another regular player. I mean, I can just show myself here very quickly, because I believe I'm still up here. Yep, just outside of top 100. Take a look at mine. Mine's going to look pretty different because I mostly play when I'm streaming, so you can see very clustered here. Did some really good climbing that day here too, and then these more recent ones I've gone up and gone down, so it doesn't really look like it looks different depending on what your record ends up being like, how much you end up playing that day and whatnot. Here we can see I took a little bit of a break working on some other stuff for those 2 days, but it's going to look different. But we have the Board King here as reference to show what it looks like when someone is very blatantly botting. However, there are people who are also botting, but they actually play sometimes, and they try and make it look like they're not botting quite as much. I'm not going to go through every single person and whatnot. I am going to leave a link in the description where you can check this out yourself. But there is one more I do want to feature here. Not botting as much as Board King, but very clearly also botting. And that is the number 2 spot on the NA leaderboard. So if we take a look at their record at 24K, as we can see, this does not look like a normal player's record. It's not as blatant and obvious as it looks for Board King, because clearly this person turns their bot off and plays the game themselves sometimes, whereas I've never seen Board King basically not botting. They're always playing the exact same comp, and they're always doing the exact same thing with it. Whereas this person, I have seen them actually playing the game and whatnot for real. But here we can see, look at that. It's just under a full day, but July 10th to July 11th, almost a full 24 hours here. Again, July 8th to July 9th, similar. Same for the 9th to 10th. So they're not letting it run like crazy all the time, unstopped like Board King is, but it's still, when we compare it to an actual regular player here, like here's another top player who actually plays the game. Raul is at number 4 on the leaderboards, I believe. Yeah, number 4. Look at these, like back and forth really quick. Like we see this, and then we see this. And then when we compare it to the Board King, which of these looks more similar? It's just pretty obvious. This sucks. I really hate that people do this. They aren't accomplishing anything. They're basically not only just cheating themselves, but they're cheating everyone else who plays the game. So why does this happen? Well, in order to understand why this happens, we need a little history lesson super quick on what happened with the Mercenaries ladder. And Mercenaries ladder did not always look like this, but it changed. And this change was done, I think, a little bit after the Valera release. So back in November, I think it was actually December, when the change happened. If you didn't know, back in the beginning of Mercenaries, it was almost impossible to hit 12K for that nice 5-pack rewards. the best and most dedicated players in the game often did not hit it. I think there were like literally like 2 or 3 people on a server that could hit it, because you needed to win so much more than you needed to lose to climb above 10k. It was almost impossible. And in the spirit of making things, the rewards, more accessible for players, which was a good thing, they decided to change the ladder system. Unfortunately, this change was not a positive change outside of the fact that it made it a bit easier to get these rewards. And they could have accomplished that change without basically gutting the whole ladder system and making it not really mean anything. And this happened because, as we can see here, there's a reason Board King's rating here is a staircase. And if we look at their wins and losses, you're winning, you're getting 83, or you're winning, you're getting 72. When you lose, they're losing 40, they're losing 30. You can basically lose 2 times and then remedy that with winning once. So in theory, you could be having a 33% win rate, and you would be basically breaking even. So that means at a 40% or even close to 50% win rate or less, you're going to climb. And that's how these bots do it. That's how they get to the very top of the leaderboards, because it's all about how many games you can play, not how many times you're winning or what your win percentage is. Because you could have a crazy high win percentage, 60, 70%, but you're never going to be able to compete with the amount of games that the people who are botting do. It's just not humanly possible. Board King is the most absurd example of this, because they just don't shut the bot off for days at a time. But then we do have other players who use it a little bit more sparingly, but still the cheating and the result is the exact same. They're not going to dethrone Board King because they aren't playing more than him, even with the bot, but they're going to get to the very top of the leaderboard illegitimately. And it kind of makes the leaderboard really not matter for players who want to treat it more competitively and get that top finish for a month. So how does this get fixed? Do you just ban the bots and then the problem is solved? No, of course not. This has happened before. Anyone who wasn't around 3-ish months ago, I actually did a video covering the original bot on Mercenaries PvP, which was Spark. For all I know, Board King could be the exact same person that Spark was. I have no idea, but it's definitely possible, because it's really not hard to basically, if you happen to get banned doing this, which that seems very few and far between. I know they normally do things in ban waves, and they did ban Sparkbot because he did disappear shortly after we covered the information about the botting. But banning is not really enough, because if someone has a program that can do this kind of botting, odds are they're botting in PvE as well. So if their account gets banned, they just can throw a new account on there, free to play, have the bot grind up some PvE. The Frost comp is pretty budget friendly. In fact, it's like it's like half rares. You have an epic and you have 2 legendaries in Diablo and Jaina. But grinding up the coins to get those characters and level them up is going to take really not that much time at all, because they're not the ones doing it. It's a computer program doing it. And they can just keep coming back, essentially. Banning doesn't fix the problem. So how do we fix the problem? The leaderboard system needs to change. How we determine MMR rating and all that stuff, it just needs to change. It's needed to change since December. It has been 7 months. It's a little bit ridiculous. We've had some information here and there that something is being changed. I think it is important to point out that this isn't a department this isn't the kind of responsibility of the Mercenaries team directly. I think maybe if it was, that this might have been already dealt with by now, but unfortunately, as far as I understand, the MMR stuff is all its own department, and it is entirely separate from the people working on Mercenaries as a mode in the Mercenaries team. but something really just has to change about this. It's been over half a year that the system has been like this. I've talked about it on stream a few times, but I wanted to do a video just outlining all the problems with this and what needs to change with it. So how can this be changed? I think it's very simple. You can bring back what we had at launch. It wasn't perfect, but it was infinitely better than what we have now with this system. Infinitely better. The only thing you would have to do is either you lower the rewards to a smaller threshold, or you make it once you hit a certain point, whether that be 8K, 10K, 12K, whatever it is, you can keep the system as it is until players hit that magic number. And once they hit that magic number, it needs to be more like it is in Constructed. I'm not really sure how Battlegrounds does it, but I know with Constructed, if you're playing Hearthstone and you're in Legend, you're not going to be able to climb to top 100, top 10 by just playing more than everyone else but having a subpar win rate. That's just not how the MMR system works in Hearthstone. So they just need to apply that to Mercenaries. Once you hit 10K, once you hit 12K, I think 12K is fine. It can be after people get their rewards. Leave this system in for 12K and below. I don't mind the fact that they're trying to help players get more rewards. I think that's a great thing. But once you hit that point, you need to make it where if you want to climb, you have to get a substantial win rate, over 50%. Otherwise, this is going to just literally keep happening over and over again. The bots are not going to stop, and the leaderboard is going to continue to be invalidated by people who are just gaming the system. There's also other things that can come into play. I wanted to focus on botting on this one, but you can also do certain things to abuse the MMR system, because if your internal MMR, which is what determines how your matchmaking works, is really high, naturally you're going to get less games. It takes longer to put you into a game. So if someone is able to cheat the MMR system, they can play more games, and it doesn't matter whether they're winning or they're losing. They'll literally climb faster than the best players in the game, because the best players have higher internal MMR and it takes them longer to find games. Let's say 2 players set down a 2-hour block of time to play Mercenaries. Depending on how their internal MMR is, one of those players can get a lot more games in than the other one because of queue times, because of how the internal MMR system works. And that's a topic for another time, but I figured it was worth mentioning because it ties into all of this, because that is another thing people have done in the past to cheat the system, is they find a way to abuse the internal MMR, so they're matching up with a friend or matching up with an alt so they can inflate their rating. I don't think we've seen quite as much of that recently. It was a problem more towards the start of the game, I think, but now the problem is bots, and we really need something to be done about it. But yeah, I'll have a link in the description where you can check out Donkey's site. Big shout out to him. We would not be able to have this information or be able to check the legitimacy of this kind of stuff without his website. So big shout out to him. It's a really great resource. I use it all the time. I highly recommend it. But yeah, if you want to take a look, you can go through. All you have to do is you click the little history thing here and it'll bring up the graph like we saw before. And so anyone on that leaderboard, you can take a look at their match history, see, are they actually climbing legitimately, or are they letting a computer do it for them? So hopefully this kind of explained the issue well enough. Hopefully it brings a bit more attention to the issue, because obviously there's nothing we're competing for here in terms of external reward, right? Like, there isn't a Masters tour for Mercenaries where getting your placement, or Battlegrounds lobby legends for Mercenaries, right? There's no external thing to get to the top. It's purely just a kind of bragging rights, satisfaction. People want to show off that they're good at the game, and that's a good thing to have in a game like this, especially when Hearthstone's traditionally a very PvP focused game. It's an accomplishment. People like seeing, hey, this person got to top 10 or the top of the leaderboard. Like, it's a thing to strive for in a game like this. And the fact that it is ruined by the fact that people just want to cheat to get to the top because they know the system is exploitable really just ruins it for everyone else. And that's not cool. On top of it, it also makes PvP less fun because when you run into these comps, it's the same thing over and over again. And you can even find a way to beat them and then just beat them over and over again, but it's not fun because you're not actually playing against a person who's thinking. You're playing against a robot and it's going through the motions. So hopefully this kind of explained the issue well enough, and I would love to see any kind of action to help this. Bans would be great, but like I said, bans are not enough. You need to change the leaderboard system, or this is going to keep being a problem, and it really shouldn't have been something we've had to put up with for so long. I really hope it can be remedied and fixed soon. So that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, do remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.